Okay, remember that they are changing my voice. I'm not gay. In this video, we're going to talk about the law and aggressors and Eeyores. When people say no one is an exception to the law, it's quite interesting because they're never talking about the stated law. They somewhat are, right? It's kind of doublethink. They're talking about the people who are behind the law, who make the laws behind the scenes, politicians, corporations, what have you. They're talking about these people who are very arrogant and they're aggressors. So when we talk about white people, some white people are very nice, very friendly. I've had very nice experiences with some white people, Jews, LGBT, you name it. But most of the time, the nice white people are Eeyores. From Winnie the Pooh, they're afraid to stand up for what's right. That's why, Eeyore's a donkey, the democratic symbol, the donkey. You have these kind of Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, these more aggressive white people, and they're not just Republicans, mind you. And they kind of make the law. Corporate psychopaths, narcissists, sociopaths, what have you. So when they say no one's above the law, they don't care about right and wrong. They don't care about what the law is. For example, I think we all know if Michael Jordan started talking about politics in a way that was completely true and started trying to rally people together for a sound economy, they would either kill him or sabotage him. He'd die in a car accident or something. He'd die like Kobe Bryant or something. Pretty straightforward. I mean, of all the celebrities who could have died in a helicopter accident, car accident, why did Kobe Bryant, who's considered like one of the most handsome celebrities, who's a black basketball player, why did he die in a helicopter accident? Very suspicious. I think we all kind of agree on that. Because the people who make the law and who get away with murder, so to speak, right, who operate with impunity, they are aggressors. And the white Eeyores are not going to save you. When the aggressor allows some kind of pretty boy who works with them to kind of be a fake hero, it's so the aggressor agenda goes smoothly, so the aggressors can try to look better, what have you. They try to look better by association. They try to give the white race a PR lift. So, as we're looking at that law argument, it is despicable. I'm persecuted with 23 witnesses on record. Well, they say no one is above the law. Gang stalking is rampant in America. Workplace bullying, which isn't exactly the same, but is very similar, is rampant in America. Secret society and social club harassment is rampant. It's like fraternities, right? They kind of get together and they back each other up. Okay? When you have massive fraternities like in social clubs like Freemasons, they help each other sabotage other people so that they get the job, so that they become the politician, what have you. Political sabotage, corporate sabotage, workplace sabotage, romantic-related sabotage, you name it. Frats and fraternizing. Social clubs and social engineering. The word sow, like sow your seed, is in social. A secretion, right? Secrete. And secret, like secret society. Pretty straightforward, right? So it's very despicable to see them say things like, no one's above the law. First of all, the law is supposed to be within the boundaries of what is divine and universal morals. Moral absolutes that transcend the white man's conception. Not some English guy or French guy with a wig saying as long as we're seen as superior. No, that's called being an oppressor, a tyrant, authoritarian, a kleptocrat, an oligarch. And those systems don't allow for true moral absolutes. They twist what a moral absolute is, and everyone knows it. But what everyone knows is right versus what everyone knows is wrong. Granted, every once in a while there's some kind of psychopath who doesn't want to admit that right and wrong exist, right? It's like they're criminally insane. That's why we came up with that, or people came up with that rather, the concept of being criminally insane. Now understanding the difference between right and wrong. Is it supposed to be based on laws that change all the time? Whether whipping a slave is right or wrong? Or what is universally right or wrong? What happens if you make it based on what is right or wrong at the time? And people become crazy. And there's tons of hate groups and hateful and evil people everywhere. And there's a bunch of dumb bitches who date with a stupid scale, and gold diggers and corporate. That's what happens. That's what is happening. Because they don't live based on right and wrong, and they don't interpret right and wrong correctly. And as they lie to themselves, they start believing the lie. They start breeding the lie. They start breathing and breeding the lie. So when you look at the pictures on the screen in this video series, you say, why am I pointing to white people? First of all, is it not white culture that we live in? Do we speak English? Do we dress like white Westerners to a large degree? And variations of that, right? African Americans wear a variation of white Western clothing, right? Is the government white? Are the social orders, is Freemasonry, and are the social clubs white social clubs? When's the last time you've seen a really African social club, or really indigenous Mexican social club? No, they're white social clubs. The Knights of Columbus, the Freemasons, the Club of Rome, the Club of frickin' Rome, the Pilgrim Society, and so on and so forth. You know, think about the Rotary Club, even the Kiwanis Club. You think, hey, that sounds Asian or something. But they're very whitewashed. Even in foreign governments, they have a white and whitewashed government. And they're proxies for whites, Jews, and LGBT people in the governing class. Pretty straightforward. So it's very despicable to see somebody who's behaving like a witch, or an evil warlock, or a wizard in general, some kind of sorcerer. Somebody dressed up like Mickey Mouse behind the scenes, say, we wave our magic wand, and people see things as it's fucking immature. It is painfully immature. Imagine being a serious grown man who wants people to do what's right and to make an economy that's right while they're doing things within the boundaries of being some kind of magic card, white supremacist bitch. Why do you think they wore wigs? Because they wanted to disassociate from reality. And they also wanted to kiss the old guy's ass, the old decrepit child molester in the church and other old decrepit rich scum. You know, they wanted to kiss their ass and say that they're worshiping the old goat, right? An old goat, Baphomet, goat, separating the sheep from the goats. The word toga is goat scrambled, what the Greeks used to wear when they used to think they're smart. The wig, right? The YG, and it goes back to the G in Freemasonry. And the wordplay there, the gold and the cold, right? Justice, just ice. The C old, cold. The G old, old. The G in Freemasonry. Bunch of old people manipulating your lives who are out of touch, especially when we got to the 80s and 90s and what have you. These people were born like in the 20s and 30s and 40s. They don't quite understand the younger generation. They don't understand justice. All they understand is white supremacy, and they elevate their children when they propound white supremacy, when they live it, when they spread it. They're out of touch with right and wrong. They are criminally insane because they disassociate in social clubs that deal in psychology, in white supremacist psychology. The Nazis had their flavor. America has their. In fact, the Nazis got their philosophy from America and Europe, other places. Francis Galton in England coined the terms eugenics. It really took root here in America. They're doing it all over the West, what have you. And then the Nazis said, that's cool. And they modeled their philosophy after ours, or after America's, rather. Because my kingdom is not of this world. Pretty straightforward. So when you look at the pictures on the screen, you see I try to put them in order of who in white culture is seen as above who. Okay, and you can tell that the guys who they try to put above everyone else are the reason why there's so many freaks and punk rockers, right? They've been called freaks and punk rockers, punks. You want to be a punk or freak, a creep, a weirdo? No. So why do people choose that? A metalhead, they say he's a dumbass. He's a weirdo. Rock and roll with the piercings and stuff, they say that's weird. When we think about the difference between Al Capone and Metallica or Slipknot or Megadeth, there's a huge difference. Al Capone was a bad guy, really bad guy, but at least he was kind of smooth and had some kind of self-respect. Rockers don't. They've just given up because of the governing class's insanity, and quite often their music is a response to or directly referencing the insanity of the governing class. Megadeth, look at the album covers, look at their pictures. So we look at this very decrepit society that could have been so great, where people are wasting their lives. Who's to blame? People are judged according to their deeds by God, is what the Bible says, and I, Christ. The laws they live by are subject to change based on how well people are trying to outmaneuver the oppressors who hold them down. Pretty straightforward. Okay, now remember that a huge part of what they're doing in their religion is psychology. The word mage is connected to the word magic, which is a play on words for I'm caged. They have you inside the box. They have you inside the cage. Do you really think that George Washington has some kind of magical, divine weight about him, right? He's not divine. And magic is stupid. It's immature. Harry Potter, Mickey Mouse, and Fantasia, it's immature. Peter Pan, Tinkerbell, it's stupid. Stupid, stupid. Now, when you look at the gentlemen who are bikers in the picture as well, they also don't have a divine weight about them. Neither do the people in King of the Hill, the types of people in reality that they're superimposed on. Animus, meaning spirit, a root term for the word animation, also connected to the idea of animism as a religion and a bestiality, and connected to that, right? That's a story for another day. But anyway, so you see the Pink Panther is like their depiction of Jesus. And all their white Jesuses and almost all the black Jesus depictions I've seen as well are fairy-like. Gay. Another word for gay, no offense to the LGBT community, is the word fairy. Pharaoh versus fairy. Pharaoh, before he started wearing lipstick and whatever in popular culture, at least he was depicted that way, in makeup, versus a fairy idea. Probably came from the Middle East, where they're wearing a makeup. There's the gender-neutral cults in the Middle East and things of that nature. And in Europe, hermaphroditus, Hermes and Aphrodite combined. You don't know anything like that in Egypt. They don't do that. That's gay, European, and to some degree was Middle Eastern, Semitic. Now, for the purpose of communication, I'm describing it that way. Do I think every single Semitic culture did that? No. But I don't know. One thing's for sure is that the ideal isn't the Pink Panther. Is Pinky from Pinky and the Brain ideal? No. If someone thinks they are, is that person respectable? No. You get some kind of, drug addict who's gay who says, why not? Or get some immature female never grew up who says she loves SpongeBob and she loves Pinky. And that they're the best, that they're awesome, they're the greatest, right? They're not serious people. These are stupid people. Now, no offense to somebody I've met who said just that, okay? But let's face it, that mentality is stupid. Okay. So when George Washington has a sort of pinky way about him, and he's posing like a gay Freemason or something in the inauguration pictures, or whatever those pictures are, right? Has a trowel in his hand, the checkered floor, the mosaic, his checkered past. He lays the foundation of a kind of white, Jewish, and LGBT supremacist society. Look at Thomas Jefferson and compare him to various Jews. Look at Thomas Paine. Look at Benjamin Franklin. They're Jewish-ish, at least. And of course, by now you know that the gay agenda is connected to Freemasonry, right? They're wearing aprons. If you want to be masculine, do you wear an apron? No. And how many of you believe that it's as simple as it's representing keeping your clothes clean? Okay, because aprons are worn when people work, right? They do different things, butchers, different types of people, right? Chefs, not just women in the kitchen, but it's very much associated with women in the kitchen. You see they have an effeminate way about them too, And old people tend to not to be that masculine. And the goat, right, the gender-neutral Baphomet, and they call it, riding the goat in Freemasonry. It's pretty straightforward. And what they're referring to, and it took some thinking, is they're referring to riding the devil. Why? Because Christ separates the sheep from the goats in the Bible. And Pan is associated with goats. When you look at all the goat connections in Freemasonry, they're talking about being evil. Riding the evil wave. Pretty straightforward. So as we look at this thing and we say, why are these crazy people who are like Jeffrey Dahmer, a gay serial killer? The Night Stalker, a gay and bisexual serial killer. Ted Bundy looked gay. Gacy, a gay serial killer who would disassociate and dress like a clown. Quite often they say serial killers are smart, and people say they're sapiosexuals and they prefer people who are smart. And they don't have the morality intact. Are they not dating toward mass murdering serial killer types? If the FBI was to profile the types of people who are governing society, what would they get? Are they more like a righteous person or more like a serial killer? Pretty straightforward. So you want to force people to live by laws made by people who are more like serial killers. People whose policies massacre 9 million people a year with starvation alone. People who create controlled opposition groups and make a big fuss about Gaza. You know how many children have died of starvation in Gaza? I don't know if it's in recent weeks or over the whole war. They said 57. 10,000 children die every day of hunger-related issues all over the world. So why is this huge emergent gets that craziness in society? The people who are against Israel who make more sense than the people who are for Israel, I'll tell you that right away. They basically have their priorities fucking fucked up. Almost all of them. They put a huge emphasis on it. Just like people saying, save the whales, there's a huge emphasis on it. While people are starving to death everywhere. And that's a huge part of white culture. That desensitization. Calling people angry, red, and the last word, savages. Because they don't care about their suffering. Saying, ew, a black guy, why they don't care about their suffering here and abroad. Having people call Asian people names, didn't think twice about putting in their movies. Didn't think twice about putting racist cartoons and characters in their movies. Because their culture is heartless. I'm somebody who's part white. Every culture that isn't universal pinpointing moral precision, which is basically every one race's culture, and every biracial, that's a story for another day, except for mine, is wrong. So when we're talking about racial culture, other than mine, and I don't quite consider myself a race, I am black, but my kingdom is not this world, I'm different from everybody, and black people are the most diverse people genetically, as the story goes. Africans are Africa's the most genetically diverse continent, as the story goes. Okay. Any one race culture is wrong. I'm not some kind of biracial supremacist. Name one that you think is right. What, being a skater? You think that's perfect? That's perfection? That's moral precision? No. You think the church? Oh my goodness. The church is like in a competition with the Boy Scouts and the other organized religious groups over who can rape more children. And who can do more outrageous stuff while pretending to be holy. So what culture would it be? So when one culture starts to rule over you more than the rest, is it causing you more problems than the rest? If you don't know the answer is yes, what the hell do you know? So when we're talking about making America better, or some people say great again, it was never great, okay? What needs to be done? What should be addressed? What is the priority? What are the priorities? Should we address jaywalking and turn a blind eye to the 60,000 people who die of a lack of adequate access to health care? Should we address black homeless culture and not corporate culture? Should we not look at it and break it down in its components? We live in a white supremacy state where white, Jewish, and LGBT supremacists abuse the shit out of everybody and try to scapegoat immigrants and homeless people and drug addicts and things like that for the little harm they do. It is a madhouse. It is a devil show. It is a psycho circus. Courts have become kangaroo courts. Look at the Supreme Court justice rulings recently. They're divided along ideological lines. Are they interpreting the Constitution in a way that's universally fair, or using the lens of their political party, which is an outrage? You think that doesn't affect dating? Females date with a stupid social norm scale based on whatever ideological view they have in a culture that's far from perfect. Newsflash to all you guys complaining about women, and you should be complaining about yourselves and you're complaining about males and females. Newsflash, your cultures made them fucking stupid. Not my culture. Not universal pinpointed moral precision, being willing to die on the drop of a hat for God and for what is precisely right, not a racist bone in my body. But your cultures made them dumb fucking bitches. Think about it.